I mean, that's a disaster. Tom Aspinall still can't see. He's got a fucked up right eyeball still.
It's really bad, right?
The reality is he might not ever fight again. Like, who knows? Like, if he has surgery on his eye and it doesn't go well and he can't see out of the eye, apparently he's still fucked up in his right eye. There's some tendon damage or something. And, eyes are so tricky, you never know. Unless you're a fucking complete psychopath like Michael Bisping, who fought 11 fights in the UFC blind in one eye, which is so crazy that he did that.
That's stopping me saying
I did his podcast,
shit,
right? That's your buddy. I did his podcast.
That's my buddy, man, but he's so stupid, man.
What did he say? I did not see this.
Bro, let me put this dude, Josh, man. Josh gonna go up on. See, here's the problem. You know what? So Josh always talks to me about moving to Texas. Oh man, it's so nice in Texas. Problem with moving to Texas is you start believing in stuff that just.
Look, I need to be straight with you about something, because while guys like Josh are living in some Texas fantasy land, the cold hard truth is that people get seduced by comfortable lies, and that rose-colored delusion will destroy you in this game.
It's not true. It's just not true. Where did Josh Thompson hear that? Could you ever wonder why?
But, Daniel, did you see who ended up in the Epstein files?
Rogan, but that's not true.
Yes,
Rogan wasn't in. Rogan wasn't.
John
in
Jones. John Jones.
You're a liar.
John Jones was his favorite fighter.
Bro, you're a liar, bro.
No bullshit. Go type it in.
Swear on everything.
Swear on everything. You know what? I'll try to send it to Luis right now, because you can search them yourselves. Yeah, that's John Jones' favorite fighter.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean.
Picture this. You walk into that cage, that brutal arena where careers live and die, carrying even a shred of that wishful thinking. And brother, you've already lost the mental war before the first bell rings.
I was critical because I felt like he talked about it, and then it just like kept on and kept on and kept on, and I felt like he should just kind of leave it alone and for a minute. And yeah, it sucks. And here's the thing: is he kind of accused Sorgan of cheating? And I'm actually curious to hear your opinion because of a specific opponent of yours. I feel like the ability to poke someone in the eye from space, like, that's kind of hard. And if you could be that accurate, why wouldn't you just punch them in their eye?
This isn't some heartwarming tale about geography or local heroes making good. We're talking about the savage, merciless reality of hand-to-hand combat, where feelings don't matter and dreams get crushed.
Happened in the Octagon, and things are moving so fast, right? I was more inclined to believe that it was an accident. Tom Aspinall doesn't believe it. He thinks without a shadow of a doubt, Sorgan poked him in the eye on purpose. I don't believe it. But regardless of that, right? On purpose, on accident, he's still suffering long-term damage from this. How long does the UFC wait, though? Hey, Josh was wrong. I don't think that ask has been made yet. If the UFC wanted to, they could just make an interim title fight between someone else while the champion waits. Tom Aspinall fought last year.
The UFC machine doesn't give a damn about your story, your hopes, or whatever narrative you've created in your head. It only respects one thing: pure, calculated violence and the will to impose it.
Aspinall has this injury. It's like, why can't we get these guys together? And that's one of the things the UFC's been so good at, is putting the best athletes together in order to fight. And they didn't do that. Hey, I just dropped in the chat. Damn it, I'm gonna text you guys. I'm gonna text you the email from Epstein.
That right there is what separates everything. The crucial element that divides genuine fight intelligence and unbreakable mental toughness from the real warriors versus the starry-eyed dreamers.
No, it's emails. There's like 7 million emails. So it's an email from Jeffrey Epstein to someone else saying he wants to watch the John Jones fight. Too funny.
That's so funny. Amen. But I think that's a great point, honestly.
Yeah. It stinks.
I never thought of it like that. Because here's the deal. Heavyweight is struggling right now, man.
Big time.
Heavyweight is struggling right now. And I love the big boys. But it feels like when you look at the heavyweight division, Lou, throw the rankings in the chat.
When your mind starts drifting into media fantasies or gets caught up in hollow promises from people who've never bled in that cage, your entire preparation becomes worthless before you even lace up the gloves.
It was a bad fight. Him and his opponent got so fatigued. They looked like they weren't ready to fight. They also looked like they just they didn't look as skilled as we have seen fighters look recently. So what you really need is you need the best guys fighting to kind of wipe the bad performance.
You walk under those scorching lights to face someone who's locked into the harsh truth of that moment, and you're going to pay a price so severe it'll haunt you forever. That's a reality written in pain and sacrifice, and ignoring it will cost you everything.
Cortez, maybe? Is that his name?
Waldo or Cortez Acosta.
Yeah, him.
Yes. But again, bro, he got beat. He's good. He's good, right? But he's lost fights. It's just not in a great place. Would you say that if you put Waldo Cortez Acosta in there with Cyril Gane or Tom Aspinall, he'd be competitive? Would you?
Well, you're right. So he lost in August of 25 to Pavlovich, Pavlovich is ranked pretty high.
And Pavlovich got knocked out by Tom Aspinall.
He let him go.
It would be competitive because he could move. Yeah. But Luis is the classic fan of fighting because everybody wants to write Cyril Gane off. And I don't know why.
Because he got choked by John too fast, that's why.
Yeah, but still, bro, you forget that he fought tooth and nail with Francis. You literally just sat up here right now and said the three best heavyweights in the world are John, Francis, and Tom Aspinall.
I do believe that to be the case, yes.
Cyril fought Francis Ngannou very well. Hey, a mistake cost Cyril Gane beating Francis Ngannou when he tried for the leg lock. So how bad is...
Now you're probably asking yourself why I just brought up something as explosive as the Epstein situation right in the middle of all this. But stay with me because there's a direct link here that cuts right to the heart of what we're discussing.
Francis Ngannou to fight again because I don't know what he's doing. You got to talk John into it. John's talking about not fighting again. He's got arthritis or something. I agree. I don't know. Maybe we just throw Gable Stevens in there. I've been saying that for a while.
You think Gable needs time? John even said in the year Gable be UFC champ. You don't think he needs a little more time than that?
I said throw him in there, so I'm not saying throw him in against number one, but I think he's got another fight coming up pretty quick. Put him in there. I don't know, easy. Hey, give him a couple easy ones, right? Then move him up to someone lower.
See, when we start talking about truth, about dragging uncomfortable realities into the light, about the things that get buried but influence everything at the highest levels, that's precisely the energy we need to bring to this conversation. We're talking about stripping away the glossy surface, cutting through the marketing, and facing the harsh truths that powerful people would prefer stayed hidden in the shadows. The same way those files demanded accountability, we need to apply that same unflinching examination to the fight world. We're diving into the secrets, the unwritten codes, the behind-the-scenes power plays that shape far more than what you witness on fight night. This is about recognizing that sometimes the most important wars happen miles away from any octagon, in boardrooms and backrooms where influence and desperation create their own kind of violence. Hold on to that concept because it's going to color everything we dig into next. The connections run deeper than most people realize. Listen, let's cut through the noise here because we're not discussing some accidental finger that somehow wandered into someone's eye socket. This runs way deeper than that surface level explanation. What we're really examining is the mindset, the intention that a fighter carries into that cage with them. Think about what you're actually looking at here. We're talking about an elite professional, someone performing at the absolute summit of combat sports, who's either so wildly reckless they can't control their own hands in a life or death situation, or, and this is the disturbing possibility, they're using a calculated psychological weapon. Don't mistake this for some random accident we're analyzing, not at this championship level where every movement, every strike carries the weight of legacy and can shift an entire career in one heartbeat. Here's what really gets me. If you can land an eye poke with that kind of surgical precision, seemingly out of nowhere with that deadly accuracy, that's not misfortune for your opponent. That's a developed technique, a questionable skill that completely undermines everything the sport is supposed to represent. The real psychological warfare, the stuff that actually decides fights, starts long before any contact happens. It begins when opponents start expecting it, when that mental burden changes how they approach the entire fight, compromising everything they've trained for. What people don't understand is that these accusations, these whispers about dirty tactics, they don't disappear with the news cycle. They attach themselves to a fighter's name and can define their entire legacy long after their last fight ends. Once that reputation takes hold, it's almost impossible to shake. Here's something you need to understand about accidents in the UFC, especially when we're talking about the brutal reality at this level. An accident is really just a devastating outcome that you completely failed to see coming or stop from happening. It's not a free pass, it's a failure of preparation. Take Tom Aspinall's situation. You think his absolute certainty that it was intentional doesn't eat away at him every single day? That mental scar, that sense of being deliberately targeted, creates damage that's just as real and lasting as whatever happened to his vision. The UFC business machine, with all its spectacle and storylines, doesn't hit pause for emotional healing, especially when an entire weight class is in danger of grinding to a halt. They're not interested in investigating the how or why. Their only question is whether you can still perform at championship level. That belt around your waist demands constant action and defense. If you can't deliver, if you can't answer when duty calls, they'll create an interim title fight faster than you can blink. This means your championship reign is living on borrowed time the second any question mark appears in the narrative. It's harsh, but that's the reality that defines every title holder's journey. The throne never stays warm for long when doubt creeps in. Here's the brutal, honest truth about something everyone keeps complaining about. You constantly hear people asking why the UFC can't get their biggest champions, their most dominant fighters, into the cage more regularly. The real answer isn't scheduling problems or promotional politics. The actual issue is that crushing championship pressure, that invisible force that makes even elite athletes strategically dodge their worst stylistic matchups, especially when someone like Jon Jones controls the landscape. When a fighter of his stature sets the tone for an entire division, other top contenders aren't just training for fights, they're playing an elaborate mental chess game, calculating risks and rewards. They're absolutely terrified of gambling their spotless records against such an established, dangerous presence. The fear of losing everything they've built becomes paralyzing. Here's what really destroys the sport though: when the elite fighters refuse to face each other, when the best consistently avoid the best, the entire championship picture becomes nothing more than an elaborate charade. Forward momentum dies, rankings lose all meaning, the brutal consequences fall on the few fighters desperate enough or brave enough to actually step up and fight. So we have to ask ourselves honestly, are we watching a sport that demands peak competition at every level, or are we just witnessing an overpriced staring contest where everyone's too scared to make the first move? Because more often than not, it feels like the latter, and that's poison for both the fans and the sport's credibility. The heavyweight division isn't just struggling right now, it's hemorrhaging, and if you're paying attention, you can feel the life draining out of it with each passing month. These current rankings, they're nothing but an elaborate illusion, covering up a fundamental crisis where championship pressure has everyone frozen in place. We're not seeing the kind of evolving tactics, the aggressive forward movement that should define apex predators at this level. What we're getting instead is stagnant, predictable action that moves at a snail's pace, and the devastating effects of this standstill are destroying the UFC's biggest attractions right where it matters most, in their ability to sell fights and captivate audiences. This conversation goes beyond just discussing whoever happens to be wearing the belt right now. We're looking at a complete systematic breakdown and creating authentic, high-stakes stories that genuinely excite and engage the fan base. Think about this seriously. If the biggest, most physically imposing fighters on earth, the supposed kings of combat, can't regularly deliver the kind of explosive, pulse-pounding entertainment that drives massive pay-per-view sales and sparks passionate debates among fans, what does that tell us about the entire structure of combat sports? It's a question that demands uncomfortable answers and serious soul-searching from everyone involved. We're not discussing some small-time regional promotion here either. This is the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the absolute pinnacle of mixed martial arts competition worldwide. So when you watch fighters completely gassing out halfway through a bout, looking completely bewildered like they've forgotten everything they know about fighting, that's not just a poor individual performance. That's a complete systematic failure of their entire team, a catastrophic collapse of fight intelligence exactly when the stakes are highest, under those blazing, merciless spotlights. What you're witnessing is the devastating collision between a punishing weight cut and the unforgiving reality of Octagon competition at the highest level. That kind of showing is a direct slap in the face to every fan who spent their money on the pay-per-view. Dana White despises this stuff, and rightfully so. He's not looking for explanations or sorry excuses. He needs to see starving predators, fighters who are absolutely driven and ready to tear through the rankings with relentless hunger. He doesn't want sloppy gatekeepers making the entire product look amateurish and weak. These aren't just sporting events anymore. They're powerful public declarations about who you are as a competitor. When you deliver that kind of lackluster performance, what message are you sending to the world about your dedication, your preparation, and your respect for everyone who invested in watching you compete? It's a defining moment, and too many fighters are failing that test. What really stands out is this massive, undeniable gap that exists between the absolute elite at the division's peak and everyone else trying to climb up. Do you honestly think that simply being decent is sufficient preparation for stepping into that savage environment with the UFC's top heavyweights? That's a fantasy sold to casual observers who don't understand the brutal mathematics involved. Just examine what happened with Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Sergey Pavlovich. Rozenstruik is undeniably skilled, nobody questions his ability, but the harsh truth is that Pavlovich surgically exposed that massive difference in championship readiness and elite-level preparation. Then Tom Aspinall, operating with that truly championship caliber fight intelligence, didn't just defeat Pavlovich, he completely demolished him in mere seconds. That's not just a difference in skill levels. That's a massive crater in the rankings, a violent reminder of what happens when you're not performing at the absolute cutting edge of your capabilities. This goes beyond simply winning individual fights. It's about surviving that suffocating pressure, navigating the tactical nightmares that await at the top, and enduring that brutal, grinding ascent toward title contention. Every training camp for these elite warriors isn't just preparation, it's strategic warfare. They understand that one mistake, one moment of weakness, one tiny error in judgment, and their entire career can flatline instantly. So we have to ask ourselves, is being good ever really enough in this environment? Or is it just a guaranteed path into the deepest part of the feeding frenzy? The reality is that excellence always separates itself from the pack, and everyone else either evolves or gets devoured. You're completely mistaken if you're attempting to dismiss Cyril Gane after everything we've witnessed from him at the highest level of competition. This isn't casual fan speculation or social media noise. This represents the harsh, undeniable reality of UFC competition at its absolute peak performance level. Remember, this fighter pushed Francis Ngannou, one of the most devastating heavyweights in the sport's history, to his absolute limits, testing him in ways many believed impossible. That submission attempt wasn't desperation or panic. It was a calculated display of pure championship pressure, forcing a high-risk gamble for the finish. Now you want to completely write him off, dismiss his entire potential after one setback against John Jones. You're forgetting, or maybe intentionally ignoring, the sheer caliber of the man who ultimately submitted him. We're discussing arguably the greatest mixed martial artist of all time here. This isn't just another loss in the bigger picture, it's a defining moment that reveals everything about the heavyweight landscape and where power truly lies in this division. The question becomes this: is one submission, even from the greatest ever, really enough to completely destroy the trajectory and legacy of a fighter who's proven so much at the elite level? The answer should be obvious, and we need to examine the complete picture beyond that single moment to understand what this really means moving forward. When people start talking about prospects like whoever and suggest we should just feed them to the UFC, like it's some kind of developmental league or stepping stone organization, they need a serious reality check. That's not how the UFC functions, especially not at the championship level where careers are made and destroyed. You hear people constantly discussing easy fights for these newcomers, advocating for gentle introductions like this is some amateur proving ground. But let me ask you something crucial. Do you seriously believe that anyone, and I mean anyone, ranked in the top 15 of the UFC heavyweight division represents an easy fight? Do you think that soul-crushing championship pressure just magically develops after a few comfortable victories against lesser competition? That kind of naive thinking doesn't just result in losses, it gets promising talent completely obliterated, ending their careers before they truly begin. This isn't about allowing time for gradual development, it's about whether they possess that fundamental survival instinct, that core ability to not just compete but thrive in the Octagon's crucible, or if they'll become another cautionary tale. So what does this entire intense discussion ultimately mean for you as a dedicated fan? For those of us who invest our money in these pay-per-views, demanding nothing less than absolute entertainment value. The Octagon serves as more than just a fighting platform. It's a merciless truth detector that reveals everything about a fighter's character. It shows not just who wins and loses, but who came prepared, who has that essential survival intelligence, and who possesses the mental strength to climb that savage hierarchy. This persistent myth about being good enough for UFC heavyweight competition needs to die. It's a dangerous fantasy marketed to casual viewers who don't grasp the reality. we're not talking about just being competent. We're discussing operating at a level that completely transcends competence. It's about not merely surviving, but dominating under crushing championship pressure, conquering stylistic nightmares, and enduring the devastating effects of extreme weight cutting, all while performing under the brightest possible spotlight. You either have that primal warrior instinct to excel in that shark-infested environment, to battle through every obstacle and rise to meet impossible challenges, or you become another stepping stone for someone who does possess what's required. This sport at its highest level demands far more than technical skill alone. It requires an unshakable warrior mentality, unwavering dedication to greatness, and an indomitable drive to achieve legendary status. The question I'll leave you with is this: what are you willing to sacrifice to reach that level of excellence? That's what separates the pretenders from the champions, and that's what makes this sport so brutally beautiful.